My name is Dana, 37, a single mom scraping by in Wichita, Kansas. A week before Christmas, my dad called. "It's not the right time for you and the kids to come this Christmas," he said, voice flat, like he'd rehearsed it. I froze, gripping my phone. My mom backed him up. "The house is too crowded." Crowded. I'd spent a year working overtime selling my old jewelry, skipping vacations to buy them a new Toyota because their car was falling apart. I thought it'd be a surprise they'd love. Then I saw the pictures online. My brother, his wife, their coworker, and even the coworker's dog were all at my parents' house in Topeka, laughing around a glittering Christmas tree. My kids, my daughter, 8, and son, 6, weren't welcome, but a dog was. My chest tightened. I snapped a photo of the Toyota wrapped in a red bow and sent it to the family group chat. No caption, just the image. 30 minutes later, my phone exploded. 22 missed calls from my parents, my brother, even my aunt. I didn't answer. Instead, I typed one reply: "Now is not the right time to pick up," and hit send. The group chat went dead silent. What happened next flipped my entire world upside down, and trust me, you'll want to hear how it ends. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever faced something like this in your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. The group chat stayed quiet after my reply, but the hurt didn't fade. I still raw from my dad's call last week saying my kids and I weren't welcome at their Christmas in Topeka. I'd poured everything into buying them a new Toyota. Their old sedan was a wreck, rusted fenders, a coughing engine that left my dad stranded at the pharmacy or church. I took on extra freelance accounting jobs, hunched over spreadsheets until midnight after tucking my kids into bed. I canceled a summer trip to the Ozarks, telling Riley and Eli we'd save for something special. I sold my old engagement ring, the one I'd kept despite the divorce, and a sapphire necklace my grandma left me. Every cent went into that car, a sleek silver Toyota I imagined pulling into their driveway, my dad's face lighting up with relief. On Christmas Eve, I opened my phone and felt my stomach twist. Timothy's wife had posted photos from my parents' house in Topeka, a sparkling tree, a table piled with turkey and pecan pie, and my brother Timothy laughing next to his coworker and the guy's shaggy mutt. A dog was welcome, but my 8-year-old daughter and 6-year-old son weren't. My throat tightened. Riley climbed onto the couch, her braid swinging as she looked up. "Why didn't we go to Grandma's?" she asked, voice small. Eli tugged my hand, his eyes wide. "Are we in trouble?" I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "No, sweeties, we're having our own Christmas here," I said, nodding at our modest tree in the Wichita living room. I poured them hot cocoa piled on extra marshmallows and turned on a movie, but my heart was heavy. It wasn't just being left out. My mom's always put Timothy on a pedestal. He's in tech, married to a woman with a fat bank account, living in a fancy house with no cares. He never paid a dime for my parents' expenses, not the electric bill that spiked last winter, not the roof leak I covered in March. I wired money from my savings, skipping new shoes for Eli, while Timothy bought his wife another designer purse. My mom would call raving about Timothy's big promotion or his perfect life, barely asking about me. I'd offer to help with their bills, and she'd say, "Timothy's got it covered." He never did. I sent checks anyway, thinking that's what daughters do. But seeing that dog sprawled on my mom's rug while my kids sat home wondering why they weren't enough, that was a knife to the chest. I kept checking the group chat, expecting an apology, an explanation. Nothing. Not a word from Timothy, who'd probably seen my message and shrugged. Not from my mom, who'd planned the whole party. I wanted to fire off a text to demand why a stranger's pet ranked higher than my children, but I didn't. Riley and Eli needed me present, not lost in anger. So I closed my phone, pulled them close, and played their favorite Christmas movie. We laughed at dancing snowmen, but my mind was stuck on those photos. The Toyota waited in my garage, its red bow mocking me. I'd sacrificed so much thinking it would matter. Now it felt like a foolish bet on a family that didn't want us. I wasn't sure what I'd do next. But one thing was clear: I couldn't keep pouring myself into people who left me empty. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a new message. I ignored it, expecting another jab from the family group chat, but then I heard a knock at my Wichita front door. My dad stood there, his coat dusted with snow, eyes darting to the silver Toyota gleaming in my garage under the porch light. "Is that for us?" he asked, voice low, almost hopeful. I nodded, my chest tight, and let him in. Riley and Eli were upstairs asleep after a day of opening their few presents under our small tree. I didn't want them hearing this. I sat him down at the kitchen table, the air heavy between us. "I bought it for you." I said, my words sharp but steady. "Your car's falling apart, Dad." I thought it'd make things easier. I paused, the hurt from his call last week clawing at me. "But then you told me there's no room for us at Christmas. No room for my kids, but plenty for Timothy, his wife, the co-worker, and even a dog." My voice cracked, but I held his gaze. He looked down, hands fidgeting with his scarf, and I could see the guilt in his hunched shoulders. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," he said, barely above a whisper. "Your mom, she's always had a soft spot for Timothy. You know how she is." I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the table. A soft spot. She invited a stranger's pet over my daughter and son. I spent a year killing myself for that car, nights at my desk selling my jewelry, skipping vacations. For you. And you let her shut us out. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. He flinched, his face pale, and muttered, "Timothy's wife has money. Your mom thinks they're better off." I tried to argue, but she wouldn't listen. I stood up, pacing the small kitchen, my anger mixing with a deep ache. "You tried, Dad. You're my father. You're supposed to stand up for me, for Riley and Eli. Not nod along while Mom picks favorites." I gestured toward the garage. "That Toyota was my way of showing I care, even when you all treat me like I'm invisible. I paid your electric bill last winter, fixed your roof in spring. Timothy didn't lift a finger. He's too busy buying his wife fancy gifts while I'm scraping by to keep you afloat." My dad's eyes dropped to the floor, and for a moment I thought he'd say something real, something that would fix this. But he just sighed. "I'm sorry, Dana. I don't know how to make her see." I stopped pacing, my decision crystallizing. "Then I'm done trying to make you see," I said, my voice cold. "I'm not sacrificing anymore for people who don't value us. That car, I'm taking it back to the dealership. I'm not giving gifts to a family that leaves my kids out in the cold." He looked up, startled, his mouth opening to protest, but I cut him off. "No, Dad. You don't get to ask for forgiveness now. You chose Mom's side. You chose Timothy's side." I walked to the door, holding it open. "Go home." He stood slowly, his face a mix of shame and defeat, and shuffled out into the snow. I closed the door, my hands shaking, and leaned against it. Riley's stuffed reindeer lay on the couch, a reminder of the Christmas my kids deserved, but didn't get. I wasn't sure what would come next, but I knew I couldn't keep carrying a family that didn't carry me back. A week after Christmas, the group chat lit up again. I was in the kitchen washing dishes from a quiet dinner with Riley and Eli when my phone pinged relentlessly. I wiped my hands, expecting a belated apology from my dad after our tense talk, but instead, I saw my mom's name pop up. She'd posted on her public Facebook page a long rant about how I'd ruined Christmas by selfishly holding onto a car meant for the family. The post had a photo of their old rusted sedan parked in their Topeka driveway, captioned, "Some people care more about themselves than their parents' needs." My heart pounded. She'd twisted everything, made it sound like I'd kept the Toyota out of spite, not because they'd excluded my kids from their holiday. I scrolled through the comments, each one a fresh stab. My Aunt Doris chimed in. First, "Doris here. Dana, you should be ashamed keeping that car when your parents are struggling." Then my mom's friend Evelyn joined her words, dripping with judgment. "Evelyn says you're too wrapped up in yourself to think about family." Strangers liked the post, adding praying hands emojis and messages like, "So sad when kids turn their backs." I gripped my phone, my knuckles white. They hadn't just excluded us, now they were painting me as the villain. Timothy's wife shared the post, adding a crying emoji, and Timothy liked it without a word. My own brother silent as ever, letting this lie spread. I sat on the couch, staring at the screen, my anger simmering. Riley was coloring at the table, humming a Christmas tune, oblivious to the storm brewing online. Eli was upstairs playing with his new toy truck. I couldn't let them see. This couldn't let them know their grandma was dragging their mom's name through the mud. But the accusation stung, selfish, ungrateful, uncaring. Me? The one who'd paid their electric bill when it was overdue, who'd covered their roof repair when Timothy was too busy buying luxury watches. I'd sacrificed nights of sleep, my kids' summer plans, even my grandma's sapphire necklace for that car, all to help my parents. And now my mom was spinning it like I'd betrayed them. I opened the group chat where Doris and Evelyn had taken their attack private. Doris typed, "You're breaking your parents' hearts, Dana. That car was their lifeline." Evelyn added, "You've always been stubborn, but this is low even for you." I wanted to scream, to type a novel calling out their hypocrisy. My mom had invited a dog to Christmas, but not my kids. Timothy hadn't sent a dime for our parents' bills in years. Yet I was the selfish one. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I stopped. Words wouldn't fix this. They'd just twist them again. Instead, I made a plan. The next morning, I drove the Toyota to the dealership in Wichita, the red bow still tied to its hood. The salesman, a guy named Mike, raised an eyebrow as I pulled in. "Changed your mind?" he asked, glancing at the car. I nodded, my jaw tight. "Yeah, it's not the right fit." He walked me through the return process, explaining the $3,000 restocking fee. I flinched but signed the papers anyway. That money was half my savings, but keeping the car felt like holding on to a lie that my family valued me. Mike handed me the receipt and I slipped it into my purse, feeling a strange mix of loss and relief. Back home, I sat at my desk, the kids at school. I opened the group chat, my heart racing but steady. I snapped a photo of the receipt, the $3,000 fee glaring in black ink, and sent it with a single line. "This is my gift to myself." No explanation, no defense, just the truth. The chat went silent again, not a single reply from my mom, Timothy, Doris, or Evelyn. I leaned back, my hands trembling but my mind clear. I'd spent years trying to prove my worth to them, emptying my wallet and my heart. No more. That receipt was my line in the sand, my way of saying I was done chasing their approval. New Year's Eve brought snow and a strange kind of calm. After sending the receipt for the returned Toyota, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried too long. My Wichita living room was warm, filled with the smell of sugar cookies as my daughter and son giggled over a mixing bowl. Riley carefully pressed cookie cutters into the dough, her tongue poking out in concentration. Eli smeared red sprinkles across his hands, laughing when they stuck to his shirt. I'd decided we needed something new, something ours. No more chasing my parents' approval or waiting for a seat at their table. Tonight, we'd start our own tradition. I pulled out a recipe book, one my grandma used to use, and we mixed butter and flour, the kids arguing over who got to crack the eggs. "I'm the egg master," Eli declared, holding one like a trophy before it slipped and splattered on the counter. Riley groaned, but I just laughed, wiping it up. We shaped stars and snowflakes, baked them golden, and piled them on a plate. Later, we curled up on the couch under a quilt, watching the Polar Express, the kids' eyes wide as the train roared across the screen. I tucked them closer, their warmth grounding me. This was what family should feel like: no judgment, no conditions, just us. The next morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox, postmarked from Topeka. My mom's handwriting was unmistakable, neat and looping. Inside was an invitation to my cousin Fern's birthday party at their house. In 2 weeks, a glossy card with balloons and a handwritten note. "Family is everything, Dana. Come home." My stomach tightened. Not with hurt this time, but with clarity. I'd heard her say family first before, when she needed me to pay a bill, when she wanted me to play nice despite her favoritism toward Timothy. It was a trap, a way to pull me back into her orbit to make me feel guilty for standing up for myself. I set the card on the kitchen counter, staring at it as Riley and Eli ate breakfast, their chatter filling the room. I didn't reply. My mom's words were a hook dressed up as love but laced with control. I'd spent years jumping when she called, thinking it would earn me a place in her heart. But after the Christmas exclusion, the public Facebook post, the silence from Timothy, Doris, and Evelyn, I saw it clearly. Her love came with strings. I wasn't falling for it again. I tucked the invitation into a drawer out of sight and turned my phone to silent. No more waiting for her texts, her apologies that never came. That afternoon, I opened the group chat one last time. No new messages since my receipt photo, but the old ones from Doris and Evelyn still burned, calling me selfish, heartless, a bad daughter. My thumb hovered over the settings and I hit mute notifications. Then, for good measure, I archived the chat, burying it deep in my app. It felt like closing a door. My heart raced, but not with fear, with resolve. I was done letting their words chip away at me. Riley and Eli deserved a mom who wasn't weighed down by guilt trips or family drama. I deserve that too. I spent the rest of the day with my kids building a lopsided snowman in the front yard. Eli insisted it needed a scarf, so we used one of my old ones, bright blue and fraying. Riley added a carrot nose, giggling when it fell off twice. For the first time in weeks, I felt free, like I could breathe, without the shadow of my mom's expectations. I wasn't sure what the new year would bring, but I knew one thing: my family, my real family, was right here, laughing in the snow. By spring, I couldn't hold it in anymore. A thick envelope arrived at my Wichita home, postmarked from Topeka, with my mom's sharp handwriting on the label. Inside was a legal document, cold and official, stating that my daughter, my son, and I were removed from my parents' inheritance. A note in my mom's script read, "You've made your choice, Dana. So have we." My hands shook as I read it, the words slicing through me. After everything, paying their bills, buying that Toyota, enduring their rejection, they were cutting us out completely. I sat at my kitchen table, the kids at school, and felt a wave of anger mixed with something new: resolve. I wasn't going to let this break me. I needed someone to hear me, someone who'd understand. So I drove to Topeka, to my grandpa Raymond's small house on the edge of town. Raymond opened the door, his face weathered but kind, and ushered me into his living room. It smelled of old books and coffee, a familiar comfort. I sat on his worn couch, clutching the legal papers, and poured out everything. I told him how I'd worked overtime for years, taking on extra accounting jobs to cover my parents' electric bills and roof repairs when their savings ran dry. I described the Christmas when my dad said there was no room for us, how my mom invited Timothy, his wife, the co-worker, and even a dog, but left my kids out. I showed him screenshots of my mom's Facebook post accusing me of ruining their holiday by keeping the car I'd bought for them. I explained how Doris and Evelyn piled on, calling me selfish, and how I'd paid $3,000 to return the Toyota, sending the receipt to shut them up. Raymond listened, his eyes narrowing as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back in his armchair, his hands gripping the armrests. "Your mom's always been stubborn," he said, his voice low but firm. "But this, cutting you and the kids out, that's not right." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "I didn't raise her to play favorites like that, to hurt her own daughter." I swallowed hard, my throat tight with gratitude. For the first time in months, someone in my family saw me, really saw me. Raymond reached for the papers, scanning them with a scowl. "I'll look into this, Dana," he promised. "This isn't over." I nodded, a weight lifting off my shoulders. Sharing it with Raymond didn't erase the pain, but it made it bearable. I told him I wasn't going back to that toxic cycle, begging for my mom's approval, jumping at her demands only to be pushed away. I'm done with them, I said, my voice steady. I've got my daughter and son to think about. They deserve better than a family that treats us like this. Raymond reached over, squeezing my hand. You're stronger than they know, he said. You always have been. Driving back to Wichita, I felt a quiet clarity. My mom's decision to cut us out hurt, but it also freed me. I wasn't tied to her expectations anymore, her guilt trips, or her favoritism toward Timothy. I glanced at the empty passenger seat where the legal papers had been and knew I'd made the right choice. My kids and I were building something new, something real, and no document could take that away. Summer hit and everything changed. I was in my Wichita backyard watching Riley and Eli chase fireflies as the evening cooled when my phone rang. It was Raymond, his voice steady but warm. Dana, I've rewritten my will, he said. My house, my land, it's all going to you, your daughter and your son. I froze, gripping the phone, my heart racing with disbelief. He explained how he'd met with his lawyer, ensuring his modest Topeka property and savings would be ours, not my mom's or Timothy's. You've always been there for this family, Dana, he said, his tone firm with conviction. It's time someone did right by you. I thanked him, my voice catching, overwhelmed by his trust. For once, someone in my family chose me, saw my worth without strings attached. The next morning, my phone buzzed with notifications. My mom had posted on Facebook again a venomous rant calling me greedy and a family wrecker for manipulating Raymond. Timothy shared it, adding his own post. Some people will do anything for money, even tear their family apart. The words stung, but not like before. I'd expected their backlash, their need to twist the narrative. Comments piled up, strangers agreeing, some calling me a gold digger. I scrolled past, my jaw tight, refusing to let their lies pull me back into their chaos. Then the texts started. Doris sent a long message. Dana, you're tearing us apart. Share the inheritance. It's the only way to keep peace. Evelyn followed, her tone sharp. You've gone too far. Think of your parents, not just yourself. I stared at the screen, my anger flaring. Peace. They wanted me to give up what Raymond chose for me, to bow to their demands after they'd excluded my kids, smeared my name, and cut us out of their lives. I'd paid their bills, bought them a car, and got nothing but betrayal in return. Now they expected me to play nice to keep peace. I opened my phone's contacts and hovered over my mom's number. Her face flashed in my mind, her dismissive looks, her favoritism toward Timothy, her cruel legal letter. I hit block, the screen confirming it with a quiet chime. I did the same for Timothy, picturing his smug silence as he liked my mom's posts. Doris and Evelyn went next, their messages still glowing with guilt trips. My finger lingered on the final button, and I pressed it, severing their access to me. The silence that followed was heavy but freeing. I wasn't running back to their drama, their accusations, their warped version of family. I stepped outside where Riley was drawing chalk rainbows on the driveway, and Eli was digging in the dirt. They looked up, smiling, unaware of the storm I'd just shut out. I'd spent years trying to prove myself to people who never saw me. Now, with Raymond's gift and my kids' laughter, I knew my worth. I was done with their poison. By fall, the silence felt like freedom. I sat at my desk in Wichita, staring at my bank account where $3,000 still lingered, the money I'd set aside to help my parents with their next bill. I'd held onto it, thinking I owed them one last gesture, but after everything, their exclusion, their lies, their legal threats, I realized I owed them nothing. I logged into my banking app, typed out a transfer to my mom's account, and added a note. This is the last thing I owe you. My finger hesitated over the send button, my chest tight with finality. Then I pressed it, watching the balance drop. It wasn't about the money. It was about closing the door for good. I heard through a mutual friend in Topeka that my mom and Timothy were struggling. Without Raymond's inheritance, they were stuck covering their own medical bills. My dad's heart medication wasn't cheap, and a leaking roof that needed urgent repairs. Timothy, who'd always relied on flashy purchases to keep up appearances, was scrambling to pay off his credit card debt. Their posts on social media had stopped, replaced by tense silence. I felt a flicker of pity, but it faded fast. They'd made their choices just as I'd made mine. Meanwhile, my daughter, my son, and I were building something new. On weekends, we'd head to Sedgwick County Park where Riley would race Eli to the swings, their laughter echoing as they pushed each other higher. At home, we played board games. Monopoly was Eli's favorite, though he always tried to sneak extra houses onto the board. One evening, we baked pumpkin muffins, the kitchen filled with the warm scent of cinnamon. Riley stirred the batter, her face smudged with flour, while Eli insisted on adding extra chocolate chips. I watched them, my heart full. This was our life now, simple, joyful hours. Looking back, I learned that self-respect means drawing a line and standing by it. Setting boundaries wasn't just about saying no to my mom, Timothy, Doris, or Evelyn. It was about saying yes to myself, to my kids, to a life free from their toxicity. I'd spent years trying to earn their love, but love shouldn't come with a price tag. Cutting them off, returning that final payment, choosing my own path, it was how I protected my peace. Thank you for staying with my story. Share your thoughts below. What would you do in my place? See.